Hello and welcome back to the show. Today we are reviewing Everton and Liverpool. Everton have lost 6 of their last 9 games. We lost this game 2-0. The defence held up pretty well for the vast majority, but you can't afford to have such simple yet so damaging mistakes in a game of such high importance against a team that won't permit you to get away with stuff like that. The same couldn't be said for probably earlier games this season, but against a team like Liverpool, they are going to put you to the sword. And unfortunately, we were the disadvantaged side for it. So let's get into the match review. And we're going to start with the player of the game because I think it's only right to talk about the positives straight up. I'm going to give my player of the game to Jarrad Branthwaite. This guy, I mean, as I said, and I've said multiple weeks, he is Mr. Consistent. He has been great all year round, even in games like this where the pressurized situations are, much more prevalent in a game like this because of a hostile crowd, the team you're playing. He did not look phased one bit. If we get the stats up, 11 recoveries, 8 clearances, 3 interceptions, 6 headed clearances, 1 chance created, and a 100% tackle success in there with 1 block as well. So he did a little bit of everything. The defense was under duress, especially for the vast majority of that second half. But every time the ball went near him, he was able to, relieve us just a little bit and ensure that the pressure, wasn't too high to overcome because he was getting it out of the danger zone. So I think he was great. Tarkowski put his body on the line a number of times. Obviously got winded in the first half. There were a couple times where they were desperate lunges to, close out the shooter from outside the box. He was very similar in what he was delivering to Jarrad Branthwaite. I think also Vitaliy Mykolenko should be mentioned as well. He's had a great, very underrated couple of weeks. He doesn't get the praise he deserves because, simply put, he does his job and he does it silently. But when he does do it, he does it well. And today, they were trying to get it to Salah, get him in behind Mykolenko. But every single time, I guess you could say that Liverpool weren't on their game with that kind of pass. But at the same time, Mykolenko was doing a great job of anticipating the passing lane, and he was getting in the way and ensuring that we could go back the other way. His offensive game is, to be questioned, but much like every other Everton player going forward, we were lacking. So I don't think Mykolenko, that should be really highlighted. I think in a game where we needed our defense to really hold up, he really performed well on that side of the ball. So he deserves his plaudits. But we can talk about the attacking side of things, and I think pre-game we expected us to be a lot more reserved in that regard, only go forward when it was offered to us and that opportunity presented. The problem was when that player got sent off and we were down a man, obviously the structure has to change. You need to shuffle things, rejig things around. And unfortunately, way too much space between the midfielders and the striker. Obviously, the scheme was to just sit back and play with a deeper line. But obviously, that also means that DCL or Beto, they are alone on an island. And we know that, if there's too much space, Liverpool would have had a field day. And they did, being able to cram that player and force them into turnover. I think that was probably the big thing out of the game. They were dominating possession, really getting into those good midfield spaces. I think we did really well in terms of our compactness defensively. Obviously, forcing Liverpool into the wider spaces and, just outside of the penalty box that we were defending. There were, quite a good amount of shots from outside the box that actually got pretty close. But for the most part, I think we were giving away shots that we would have preferred to give away. It would have taken something special to, get it past the keeper of Jordan Pickford. So I think we did pretty well in that regard, but it's just crazy that we could have a defender who has not played for 7 weeks for being shit. The minute we bring him on, it takes a good old 30 minutes, just a little bit over that, for him to have an absolute stinker. I don't know what he is doing calling for a cab in the penalty box, but it was a penalty every single day of the week. It's just crazy how much of a curse this guy is. I don't want to see him in an Everton shirt again. I don't care how bad the defender is that would be a replacement for him, but it's just simply put, you can't have him in. He's just an absolute liability. If I had his shirt, I would burn the shirt, then burn the ashes, and then burn the dust. Because simply put, that guy, watching that man play football is enough to make a grown man cry. On the attacking side of things as well, I do think in the first half, we actually were employing the press quite well. The problem was that when we got the ball in those good spaces where we were turning the ball over or forcing a turnover out of Liverpool, we were taking way too long to release the open man, right? Because with Liverpool, you've got two physically imposing defenders. The way you're going to manipulate that is you have to bypass them and be a lot more dynamic with the ball. Problem was, our play was not promoting that. Instead of just passing it quickly, getting that dynamic play going, we were holding the ball for too long and either getting dispossessed or we were actually bringing the attention across to the open man that we should have passed it to much, much earlier in the play. There was one where DCL was going across the park on a diagonal. We had Dwight McNeil open, and those two have basically collided and gotten confused with a little bit of miscommunication, and we lost the ball because of that. Because we were way too crammed. You've got to manipulate those spaces you're getting, as opposed to cramming yourself and actually doing yourself a major disservice. So I think that was part of the problem. That happened on a couple of occasions. There were a small amount of opportunities that were teasing us. There was one where Pickford sent long at the back end of the first half, and DCL parried it off his chest. Unfortunately, it went far too in front of him, so far away that he couldn't really make an impact. It got to Alisson, and we weren't the beneficiaries in that case either. Abdoulaye Doucouré as well, I think he is a very intriguing player because he is very, very good at working hard. The problem is the actual poise on the ball. I do think we actually should have subbed him off as opposed to a player like Jack Harrison. I think Jack Harrison works equally as hard. I don't think that would have helped the shape that Sean Dyche wanted to play going into the second half. But that being said, I think we needed a little bit more poise, and I think Jack Harrison would have provided that. I think the sample size was there in the first half to convince me about that fact. Doucouré just looks like he's going to trip over every single time he dribbles the ball and tries to pass it. I say try because usually he's not very successful. So yeah, I don't think for a game like this, I think Jack Harrison provides a little bit more. I think we needed that class just to get a little bit more relief for our backline because they were under the pump. But yeah, I mean, overall, not a bad performance at all. I mean, obviously, you go away from the game empty-handed. Quite a bit of discourse surrounding the referees. I don't feed into much of that because, obviously it dictated the game today. But there's a lot of things that we could have controlled as well. I think we approached the game quite well. But as I said, you're always going to have your back against the wall if you're a man down. So, I mean, it is what it is. There are a few good things to take away. I don't think there's too much to take away negativity-wise because, obviously a man down. We can't even break down a team when we have 11 players. So to do it with 10 was always going to be a tough ask. But I do have a little question to pose. The concern has arisen that when we go down one against a really good team, can we respond? That is the burning question. Are we good enough to tie things up again if we find ourselves a goal down? And right now I can probably say the answer is no, because when we actually have to do the work and we're not waiting for others to make mistakes so we can pounce, we aren't the better team for it, usually. So we obviously do well on the counter-attack, that sort of thing. So if we're chasing tail, it's always a little bit more difficult because you have to manufacture things yourself. Look, given we were down a man, I don't think this game is a great gauge of whether we can do that, but at the same time, I mean, it's probably saying that we're more in the unlikely camp than the likely camp. So it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, we've got a tough run of fixtures coming up. We've got West Ham next, which is going to be a tough game at London Stadium. They've got Villa tonight as of recording this video. So it's going to be interesting to see whether they are going to be in the camp of, needing to respond, or they're, a little bit more relaxed going in. But you can't treat any team any differently, irrespective of where they are on the table. So, look, we've just got to focus on getting better. I think I think the strategy was there, was the execution there. Probably it was there for the majority of the game, but as I said, once we found ourselves a goal down off the back of one simple error, it wasn't an indictment on our defensive scheme, because I think we employed that pretty well. Branthwaite, Tarkowski, Mykolenko did really well back there, but the problem was, as I said, one simple error, and of course it had to be Michael bloody Keane. We were in the mud as soon as that goal bypassed the outstretched arms. Well, not really, because he was planted in the middle of the goal. But once that goal was scored, we were done for. So that'll do it. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back for Everton West Ham, that review next week. But for now, have a great rest of your day. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.